Good afternoon, everyone. It's ZoomTRAK by NRail. My name is Matthew Zuccaro, NRail social media coordinator. I'll be filling in for our regular host, John Doring. NRail is the organization promoting N-scale model railroading, whether it's N-track, Fremo N, T-track, home layouts, club layouts, no layouts, it doesn't matter. If it's in the normal scale, you are in the right place. After the show, be sure to check us out on social media. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, Discord, and more. As usual, we have a packed agenda today. We have announcements by Bruce. We'll then roll into Whistle Stop Dayton by Bruce DeMaeyer and Kevin Squire. And lastly, we have a tutorial and training on using DCC-EX by Steve Todd. Bruce, over to you for the announcements.
Well, actually, I have no announcements today, so we got a very full program. So,
All right, we'll keep the train moving then. No pun intended.
Yeah.
With that, we'll roll into Whistle Stop Dayton with Bruce and Kevin.
Okay.
Okay, second slide. Okay, there we are. The title of my dissertation today is T-Track N and Operations. We use the word N quite regularly when we communicate because we have some people in the region who are doing T-Track HO, and I have no responsibilities whatsoever for that effort. My presentation to you today was supposed to be both Kevin Squire, who is our architect, layout architect, and myself. I'm the region coordinator, but Kevin is busy with another task, and so I'm going to be doing the work today. We are called officially the Mid-Central T-Track N Group, and we're part of the National Model Railroad Association. New logo on the right, convention logo on the left. So next slide. A little history, a quick history of T-Track and the MCR. Our very first convention that had T-Track was in 2018 when we presented at Boardman, Ohio, a fairly large group of modules, considering its first time at that convention. We uniquely, at that convention, had our toolboxes equipped with JMRI, and we block detected features in JMRI and put it on an HDMI flat screen monitor to show people, the advanced technologies that are available to them, even in JMRI. It was the worst experience of my entire lifetime because the buses that we had to put in had to be a section of bus and detection circuits had to be put in for about 9 different detection circuits. And by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, starting at 9 in the morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was just about dead. And it finally worked. We got it to work. We have had it layout at every convention since, with the exception of the 2 that in the region that were campused by COVID. But we substituted that year because we participated in a 3-region meeting in Indianapolis called the Indy 2022. And we had a big layout there because we had 3 regions. It provides the members of the convention. I mean, this is why we do it. It's not for show. It's not for anything else other than it's an opportunity for members of the group who attend a convention, gives them an opportunity to bring their modules, to show us what they're doing, and to run trains during their downtime. Our all new models that are judged by choice of the modeler. They're judged to scenery standards in the AP program, and the square footage is included in the 17 square foot requirements for the scenery AP. And to the best of my knowledge right now, we have had 2 modelers who have in fact collectively achieved that 17 square foot requirement, and all of them now have the scenery AP as a result of doing T-Track on modules. Our current region-wide inventory of models far exceeds 150 modules. and I'm quite proud of that because we brought it from basically nothing to pretty good hunk of modules. Next slide. And if there are any instant questions, holler in on it, okay? I'll have some time at the end too. Why operations? Why are we concerned about this? For most of the conventions that we've had earlier, we've done what I would call train rail fanning type layouts, where people put trains on, run them, and they go around in circles. Usually there's a large yard, and most often we're running bi-directional trains, right-hand running kind of stuff. We were challenged last year to present something a little more challenging for the attendees. The rail fanning, train running is okay, but that's not very challenging. So part of all of our conventions always include visiting and operating in the layouts of the members in the immediate area of the convention. But in Dayton, it's a relatively small group of modelers, and most of them who have layouts in their homes that would be visited for an op session are working at the convention. And so it's not too easy for them to do both. So there aren't going to be very many layouts for ops in Dayton. But this year, we're going to have the layouts, the members of the convention, including those, ops guys that have them in their own house, a chance to run them in the convention. So bottom line, this layout will provide the ops experience to the convention attendees, and they can do that right in the hotel. Next slide. Okay, in this particular slide, we are always constrained in everything we do in TRAK for conventions with the amount of space that the convention guys can negotiate because they are in a hotel. We're not in a convention facility. We're in a hotel, and the hotel has a limited number of rooms usually, and there's other competing things for the space. So space becomes our limitation. That lets us have 65 plus or minus modules in the layout this year. We are using a unique pair of Jackson transition models to expand the area covered by the layout. There is one red line and two yellow lines. The entire red and lower yellow lines on the drawing that you'll see soon will be used for rail fanning. And we can't quit that because a lot of people want to run their trains. But the upper yellow will be used for operations. There will be over a dozen of these 65 modules provided for drop-off and pickups. And the ops user will use the upper yard, a second yard for the layout that is just going to be used for beginning and ending an ops session. So with enough words, let's see what the layout looks like. Next slide. There's the planned layout as it is today. And you'll notice the use of the Jackson transition modules down on the bottom in a sort of unique way to use them. And it provides us with the ability to let the trains run normally on the red line and I'm sorry, and yeah, both of them for rail fanning, and the upper yellow is only for operations. So it should have a bottom yellow there, but I forgot to put it in. Okay, so you'll notice all of them are in there, and they've got the myriad of turnouts and all the other things that are going to be required for operations. This is not the sort of thing I would ever put in a public TRAK environment, because I can't think anything worse than the trigger-happy kid who figures out how to turn the turnouts on the line and then, kind of flashes his hand in there and does it and then steps back to see what's going to happen. And that would be a disaster in operations. So these are all adults. There's no kids here, and I don't think there's any of the NRail adults that we're going to try that. So this is a unique thing. I wouldn't recommend it for anything but a professional layout, or perhaps a demonstration layout, or something that's got stanchions around the outside keeping people away from it. So before I leave the layout picture, is there anybody that has any questions about it? Okay, go to the next slide. When registering at the convention, the participants will be directed by flyer in their convention handout package to go to the layout room, and an operations table will be sent up for the participants to perform their operations tasks. We think, we haven't settled it on it completely, but we think we will put 3 people together as an ops team, and we're thinking we will take about 30 to 45 minutes and build operations scripts for that 30 to 45 minute time frame. Now, I don't, that operation scripts definition with quotation marks around it is my definition for what will ultimately be handed to the ops team of 3 people, who will then proceed to follow the requirements that are on the scripts and what to do at various locations, what kind of pickups, what kind of drops, and so on, and be very clear about where those are all going to be taking place. One group will do its assigned 30 to 45 minute operation and bring the train back to the ops yard and hand the trains over to the next group of operators. Now that's running one set of operations at a time. We may get gutsy enough to try to figure out how to do 2 train groups at a time. And then that's going to require the beginnings of some communications that we'll have, because we're going to have to put people in the sidings while the other guy goes around them and some of that kind of stuff. All fun things to activate in a new world. Next slide. The process that we're going to use was created by Kevin, and it's called Simplified Wheel Reports. It's easy to pick up and learn. There are no time constraints in it, required time constraints, making it less stressful. Very good for newcomers and train shows. The operator has a number of choices they can use to make it easier or harder. Each session, as I said earlier, will be 40 to 45 minutes long. Each session will involve 1 or 2 operators, maybe 3, if you had an engineer and a conductor and a guy doing the switch controls, which I'll bring up in just a second. So this is not just tail chasing, it's meaningful. And if you've got a camera, I mean, if you got your iPhone out, take a picture of this slide, and at the very bottom of it, it has the HTTPS for how the operations will run. And it's open to anybody to use. If you want, it's going to tell you how to do operations stuff on TRAK. It's been written by Kevin, and it's good. So the stuff is only new at the ops standpoint. We have, as you would expect, we have a layout that's in conjunction with the hotel, the amount of space and everything else. And I hope this gives you a small lesson of what we're doing with TRAK-N in the mid-central region. And Paul Musselman is on here with us, and Paul has been with us all of the time we've been in there. He is Mr. Cincinnati TRAK, and he's going to be the key leader in next year's convention in Cincinnati, and I suspect the operations thing is going to be even bigger next year. So with that, any questions?
All right, Bruce, thank you so much for that presentation. We really appreciate learning more about the club and the organization.
There is some indications. There were some indications that maybe we'll come back in July after the convention with some pictures showing it all in operations. That's very dependent upon your time.
That's good to know. All right, we're going to go ahead and roll into our next presentation. Before we turn it over to Steve, just want to highlight we have a couple of upcoming train shows that I think will be of interest to the audience. First, registration is now open for the Altoona and Scale Weekend, which will be September 12th to 13th. You can register for that show online now. Some additional upcoming train shows worth noting is the Brick Train Show, May 17th. That's tomorrow at the Brick Elks Lodge in my home state of New Jersey. We also have the New England RPM, May 29th to May 30th at Springfield, Massachusetts. And a new up-and-coming N-Scale show, the Southern California N-Scale Meet and Train Show in Lomita, California. It's going to be held May 30th. With that, let's go ahead and turn it over to Steve Todd. Steve has a lot of experience leveraging technology for model railroads. He has designed, maintained, and supported the Android mobile app Engine Driver. He's also built a turnkey image for JMRI running on a Raspberry Pi. Steve's going to go ahead and walk us through using DCC-EX. Steve, over to you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm sharing my screen. Are you able to see that?
Yeah,
Yep, we
I
got it.
see it.
Okay. All right. Let me just kind of give you a very top level and warn you. I could talk about this for hours. Obviously, we're not going to all be here for hours, so I'm going to try to basically go across the top of this presentation. The link to the presentation is listed on the slides, on several of these first slides. You can see it down at the bottom. I would advise you to go to that location, that link, and get these slides, because there's going to be some I'm going to mention. I'm going to throw a slide up there with a lot of information and then bounce on to the next slide, because it's been referred to as a Cliff Notes version of a 2-hour presentation. So that's what we're going to do. I'm not going to talk about what I do. That's all in the slides. I'm going to describe what it is. I'm going to try to explain in such a way that you'll know why that it's worthwhile to look at this project, or pay attention to this project, and maybe get one of these devices and use it yourself. I'm not going to tell you how. There's other clinics, there's other topics, there's websites to show you more how. I'm going to show you some concrete usage examples that I've encountered and have done myself, to kind of give you an idea why you should even care about this project, this DCC-EX project. What is DCC-EX? I will hover here for just a second. It's a Wi-Fi capable DCC and DC software command station. So it's a software command station that includes Wi-Fi capability immediately. It can handle DCC. It can also handle DC blocks. It runs on microcontrollers, what a lot of you would refer to as Arduinos. It runs on things past, newer versions that they don't really call Arduino anymore. And I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about the current flagship product. It's actually a product made by this team. It's called the CSB1, and it runs a piece of software called EX Command Station. So I may use those two terms kind of interchangeably, but the CSB1 is the gadget itself, and I'll have a photo of that in just a moment here. A CSB1 is kind of a ready to run. It comes with Wi-Fi, a display, a motor shield, which is necessary to actually talk to the track. It comes preloaded with software, with a power supply. Right now, the price is about $160. It drops based on tariffs and availability of things. You could build your own, but I found that the moment you say build your own electronic devices, you drop off a lot of people. A lot of people fade out and go, okay, I'm out. I'm not going to make this thing myself. And so we lose people. So these guys built this preloaded thing that you can literally buy. And most of what I'll talk about is based on buying that device, that command station that comes with the software on it. So here's a photo of it. On the right-hand side, you kind of see it wrapped up in a nice little 3D printed case. On the left hand, you'll see the board itself and its power supply. The only thing I want to point out in the upper left is you see the two blue terminals there. Those are for the track outputs. As you buy the device, just a standard device, it comes with 2 track outputs. Normally one's for DCC, one's for programming. If you have DC layouts, you could use it for 2 DC blocks. The green is going to be for rail sync in, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. There's also an LCD screen on top of it. You can see the kind of things you could have the command station show you. So you can like find the Wi-Fi password very easily. It's printed on the LCD screen out of the box. Okay, what can you do? I will talk later about adding and changing the software, but at the beginning we're going to talk about, okay, I bought one of these things. Fred has shipped it to me. Fred's the guy that runs the DCC-EX store. And what can I do with it without doing any programming or any computers or anything like that? Here's things you can do with it. You can wire it up to your tracks. You can plug in a program track. You can plug in your main track. If you have a little NTRaK or a T-track loop, you can wire it up directly to the main. You can put DCC on both of them and have I guess the yellow and the red is what I think is referred to on two separate blocks. You can immediately, without any other work, you can connect engine driver or the Y-throttle Wi-Fi apps, because the command station itself is an access point. It's its own radio station, if you will. So it has its own Wi-Fi address, and you can connect to it. And you can do simple DCC programming with engine driver or another free app called EX Toolbox. Engine driver, by the way, is also free, and it's Android based. But you can actually program your locomotives. You can set the addresses. You can do any of the things that you can do if you know the CVs. It's not JMRI out of the box. It can connect to JMRI, but it's not that JMRI in the engine driver. So it won't give you all the nice graphs and the tables and all that sort of thing. But if all you want to do is change the DCC address, that's available to you with a screen I'll show you in a moment. And then immediately you can run DCC locos by address without any change to the software itself. You can control DCC turnouts. If you have DCC turnout controls on your layout, you can activate those through engine driver. You can also switch your blocks, your outputs from DCC to DC kind of on the fly. The engine driver has a capability of doing that. So I don't know if you have a short test track and you're at a show and somebody walks up with a DC locomotive, you can say, okay, let me switch this to DC, so we can run that locomotive and test it out, and then switch it back to DCC or vice versa. All right. You can also, without any additional changes to the CSB1, you can connect from JMRI and do some really fast DCC programming. It's as fast as some of the gadgets that are sold by the vendors. It's a lot faster than, for example, programming through a DigiTRAX command station. There's just the way the software is written. It took advantage of some things that some of these hardware folks don't understand and don't take advantage of. Okay, all right. This is a picture of JMRI plugged in. The only thing I'm going to mention is in the lower right, you kind of see an earlier one, a do-it-yourself version, a Frankenstein, built by one of my friends, and it's tied to his programming track there at his desk. And that's how he does his programming. So he has JMRI on his computer. He plugs it into that, and then he can do all his programming on that little piece of track there. Okay, we're moving on. This is another example that's probably familiar to some of us in the T-track world. This is a T-track HO module. Our NRail division also has T-track HO modules and runs a layout. That layout has been run for several years now, completely controlled by this DCC-EX device that's under one of the modules. Marcus added a wire there, moved the LCD or the OLED screen, I think that's called, over to the back of his little his movie theater, so we can see it from above the module, because you can't always get under the modules, obviously. But that provides Wi-Fi access, so my guys just walk up with their phone or their tablet and connect to the Wi-Fi, and they can run their locomotive on our T-track HO layout. Same thing can be done with regular T-track in. It can be done with our NTRaK layout. Our club's NTRaK layout is still DCC. I'm sorry, is DigiTRAX, but that probably won't last forever. Okay, so next, this is how the Wi-Fi looks. It basically out of the box creates an address, a Wi-Fi network that you connect to. There's your password. It's the same thing shown on that screen. Here's some of the features. I'm not going to go through most of these. You can program on main. You can do programming track, service mode, writes and reads to it. Again, CV based, not some graphical interface like JMRI, but lets you do a lot of cool things with it. And you can also change the DC from DCC to DC. That can be done through a screen and engine driver. Here's a little layout that has it connected in the middle. This guy's layout of pocket modules. I'm not familiar with pocket modules, but the hardware is all in the center there. If I had a nice case on it, it would look a little less scary. But that's an example. I'm trying to show you examples of how this thing can be used in the wild, in the real world. Okay, so far we haven't done anything that looks like code. We've just taken the box just like you bought it and plugged it in, just wired it up. And we're able to do these things with it and use engine driver and do this programming and do all these things. But there's stuff you can do beyond that. That's just the scratching the surface, if you will. So we need a piece of software to help make that happen. And that's a piece of software called EX Installer. It's free. It's provided by the project. And basically it's a wizard that will allow you to do these things. You can change your Wi-Fi settings. You can set up roster entries. You can set up turnout definitions. You can permanently switch your track manager from DCC to DC or whatever and save it and leave it in there. That means you can now run DC locos. You can set up automations, and I will talk a little bit more about that. You can program trains to run on their own, and something called NRail we'll talk about, and you can update the software. So you download the EX installer. The website is DCC-EX.com. It's a great site. All these links are at the bottom of the presentation. So if you go to the presentation, you can find these links. Here's a picture of the first screen of the EX installer. Basically, you're answering questions. I have a display. I have Wi-Fi. I don't have Ethernet. I want to start with the power on. I have this size of a display screen. You specify the things. I select the motor driver here. These are all very straightforward questions that the software asks you. That's just for configuration purposes. Here's where I put in my Wi-Fi network, and that's how it's going to show up on my phone. When I pull up engine driver, it's going to show Steve T-DCC-EX. So you set all that information in these screens. Here's where you would permanently change track B to say, I want this to always be DC output. Track A in this example is still sitting at main. So here's an example. My son-in-law has one of these just installed in a sealing loop. That is a DC locomotive, an old HO locomotive I had when I was 15. He found in my garage and built him some tracks up in the ceiling and runs it. He runs it with his phone connected to it, but that's a DC locomotive running on a DC track, and it has run now for, I guess, 3 years without any problem. Just powered up, connect up his phone, and he runs his train. So this is what that looks like on the engine driver with a DC locomotive. That locomotive you saw in the ceiling there was 1501. We actually put the number in there just so it could be any number you wanted, really. And you slide the slider, and that's how he runs the DC locomotive with the app. So I'm not going to stop for questions. Now, if you have questions, put them in the chat. That might make it easier for us to find them at the end. The next thing I will talk about is adding smarts. The purpose of a programmable command station, while it's great to be able to take it out of the box and use it, it's also nice to be able to do some really advanced things with it. So you understand that up till now, all I've talked about is take the thing out of the box and use a piece of software to maybe set the Wi-Fi address and some things like that. If you need to, that's not necessary unless you want to hook to another network. But we're going to go another step further and make this thing even smarter, and you'll see how some of this works. There's a thing called NRail. NRail is a built-in scripting language. And that scripting language, you write some code in, what looks like code, and it gets loaded down to the gadget and saved on the gadget to operate your layout from that. You don't leave the computer attached. You would need it to load this software down to it. So again, you back up, same EX installer, except now I'm checking a box that says advanced config, and that takes me to these additional slides or additional screens. And this is basically where it put the information. We answered the questions, the password I typed in, I said I had Wi-Fi, that sort of stuff is all listed here. If you go a little further, you start to run into what they call this file called My Automation, where you can define things like a roster. And if you see kind of at an angle across the thing with the red there. It says, I'm defining a roster. I have to give it an address, a name, and then I type in very, very easily the functions and what the function should be called on the screen when you pull it up on your device, whatever that device might be. That's Wi-Fi attached. So you can see how that works. The little star there just means that the horn is momentary. So it's just a way to type in some very simple information. It is programming, but it's not, at this point, it's not difficult programming. It's cut and paste kind of stuff that most of us could probably do. A little bit further on to get a little more complicated, that auto start means at the beginning of the when this device powers up, it's going to do these things until they're done. So it's going to power on the layout, and it's going to set the address for track A and track B, and both of those are going to be DC. So this is actually where it makes that change that we talked about on a screen before. This is how it actually does it. It's put into this language and saved down to it. So here's a more complicated script that I write that belongs on one of my, I have this on a device sitting on one of my modules, the South module, as you can tell, where I define 3 turnouts, servos. Those are the speeds and the angle and the inactive angle, when you throw on and closed, what the angles are. And then that auto start 130 that you see there, it says throw 130, basically just says, okay, when you start up, throw number 130, because that one's actually a mainline track that's sort of backwards from, so I want it to always be on the main line when the layout comes up. And then I also program some buttons. So there's a real simple, the language is very simple at this level, and it kind of says on button 12. So when I press button 12, which is actually a wire plugged into a hole 12 on that device, toggle turnout 129, and then you're done. So that's what controls it. So I have a button on the front of my layout on my fascia, and this is the software that controls that turnout, that servo. And I'll show you the hardware in just a moment. But this is what that, when you hear them talk about NRail, this is some NRail, very simple NRail. Okay. All right. Now we're going to show you a different DIY. I told you we don't use the term Arduino as much anymore. It's because it's really because of this device to me. It's called an ESP32 Plus. It runs the same language that the Arduino series does, but it's a lot newer. It's faster, stronger. It's the $6 million man of the Arduino world right now. But if you don't need the other stuff that comes with the CSP1, so you don't need a motor shield because I'm not running track with this. I don't need a screen. So I buy this $16 ESP32 and I add a servo shield for $5, but I load the same software on it. This is running that exact same software. So all that same NRail language that you saw runs on here as well. I can add buttons by literally plugging them in. If you look across the top, you'll see IO 19, 18. Those are actually where those buttons came from. I'll show you where the servos go in a second. What's that? Okay. Then I want to connect to the JMRI. And again, this device has its own Wi-Fi, so I can connect JMRI to it and then control those turnouts, get updates. I can change the display of the panel based on somebody pressing this button on here. And you've not soldered anything. You've not had to build a board. You just bought $21 worth of hardware and loaded some free software on it. So that's pretty handy. Here's the shield for the servo. You see those yellow pins kind of towards the bottom, almost at the bottom, where they got the 3 wires. That allows you to plug in the servos into those, and there's 16 of them on this board for $5. So you're looking at that $31, $21, and you can control 16 servos with the software. The software is where the magic is, to be honest with you. Those other headers just pass through. This is my module that this is under. This is what it looks like on the bottom. You see that those 2 boards are actually stacked there and pinned to my styrofoam. And you see the servo number 131 down at the bottom left is plugged in with the 3 wires into one of those sets of wires available there. The servo leads are the fascia buttons are the red wires. I'm obviously not a wiring guy. I'm a software guy. But that's all there is to this thing to control, in this case, just 3 servos, but it could control 16 if I filled in the rest of the blanks. But I'm controlling 3 servos under this module, and it's feeding back to JMRI, and I've got some free software, and I've got $21 worth of hardware involved. So, all right, that's what JMRI looks like when it's plugged into those 3. The turnouts, you see NT, ST, and LT. That's the STs are the ones that are there. I don't know where the third one went. In this example, I maybe made it before I plugged it in. So this is kind of what the connection looks like when JMRI is talking to it. So JMRI is talking, in this case, to my DigiTRAK system, my DCS-240, and it's also talking to 2 of these DCC-EX devices to control the servos. And I could have more, but that's how many modules I have. So, okay. Moving on a little bit further. This is another device made by the EX team. This is for the CSB1. This is really the expensive part of it, if you will, because this is where the power is controlled. This safely powers the track from the output. It's got 2 5-amp outputs. You can use those outputs for DCC or for DC or for programming track. You can stack these things up if you need more outputs, more sections, if you will. And then it's got the fault detection and polarity built into it. So this is a gadget that's sold by the DCC-EX team. And again, it's $45, but it can park on top of that device I just showed you, the ESP32. So this is kind of the minimal DIY version of this. I buy the motor shield, I plug it into one of these $16 ESP32s, and now I can go run trains. This is actually what's sitting in the ceiling example that you saw from my son-in-law. This is actually the device that's sitting up there running his DC layout. So all right, keep moving. All right, automation. All of this is just a way so far to replace hardware with hardware, and add a little bit of Wi-Fi and that sort of thing. But now we're getting into some stuff that's a lot smarter than that. Is basically automation. So here's a way with that same language and that same scripting we saw earlier that you can set up an automation to say, okay, I want to move this train in a circle. I want it to stop at this sensor. I want to wait a certain random amount of time, and then I want to go back around at a different speed. And that's the whole program. And if you put that on and ran the train and you had the one sensor at that spot, then you basically have automation available. This is what we will do with our T-Track layout this in the next couple of months, or after the show in July. I'm not going to touch them until then, but we're going to basically have a couple of modules where the train will stop based on logic like this, or this exact logic, and then let the train run, because seeing it start and stop is a lot more interesting than just running around in a circle. So that's what we're looking at doing. And there's just a lot more that command station can do. I will show you 2 more things. Again, I'm trying to show you what can be done, not how to do it. But there's a thing called booster mode. Booster mode is basically you put a second ESP or second CSB1 out there on your layout, and you wire in from those the rail sync inputs, that blue connectors I showed you before, from the upstream command station. And now you've got additional power districts, and they can be at a distance. They can be as far away as you want to run that wiring. And they can provide up to 4 power districts. So if you had a really large layout, you could have a number of these boosters. And all this booster is doing is taking the DCC signal that it's sniffing in on the rail sync, and it's reinforcing it and sending it back out. So all it's doing is refreshing that DCC signal. It injects, brand new power. This is new DC power to the device. So if you've got a lot of districts, or if you got trains, you don't want to have to make the amperage go up. What you want to do is spread that amperage out. This is a way to do it without having to have home runs all coming back to and this is, I'll show you a picture in a second, kind of maybe explain that a little bit better. But this is what the using this same software, and you tell it, hey, you're in booster mode now. So it doesn't turn on the Wi-Fi. It doesn't do some of those things. It just says whatever's coming in on the rail sync, put it back out on the track power for these outputs. This is the track. This is the national T-Track layout in Chattanooga. Bruce and a lot of other people are working so hard on. Basically, in the same way that there's a DigiTRAK's command station in the middle, and then a lot of DigiTRAK's command stations spread out. The exact same solution could be done with the DCC-EX, and it solves the same problem. And basically, the wiring design would be about the same thing. It's the same idea. As you would run you want to keep the boosters all synced up, so you have to run the wire back as quickly as possible. And so that's what the boosters look like. So we could do boosters for that if we wanted to. I'm not recommending we change Chattanooga, I promise. The next thing, this last thing we'll talk about is DCC sniffer mode. Same deal, you plug in the rail sync, except now you use the software to actually do something with the commands that are coming in. And one of the things you can do is you can use your old throttles, your old hardware throttles. Let me show you a picture of that. So that NC command station, one of the outputs is going into that rail sync input on the DCC-EX. The DCC-EX is managing the track, but that command station maybe has some throttles that are and other devices that are plugged into it. As long as they're putting it, the signal goes out on that track on the rail sync, this DCC-EX CSB1 can recognize those commands and do whatever you want to them. So it can say, oh, well, here's this turnout. Oh, I'm going to operate this servo based on it, because the CSB1 understands the servo language, but the throttle may have the button on it that you want to press, or whatever it is. So it's kind of a way to transition from one to the other, potential transition from an old system where people are used to doing things a certain way over to this. This also, of course, would give you access immediately to the Wi-Fi devices, engine driver, and the TCS throttles and all those things that use those interfaces. And it basically merges those commands. So it sniffs those commands and puts them back out on the track, but also with automation running, with Wi-Fi throttles running, with whatever. It kind of puts them all out there at the same time. Very amazing things. A lot of stuff can be done with that. Let's see. You could put in logic and say, okay, if a certain speed, if somebody turns a knob to a certain speed, I want an alarm to go off. I want to make a noise. I want to send a message. I want to do, who knows what all you can do with it. This is not LocoNet. I'll go ahead and say that before somebody says, hey, does this do LocoNet? This doesn't do LocoNet. This would take a DigiTRAK's track bus and make decisions based on the DigiTRAK's track bus. But once it's on the track bus, it's no different DigiTRAK's versus any other brand. But LocoNet is a proprietary thing that at this point, there's some very DIY ways to pull that in, and I'm not going to get into those. I'm going to future enhancements. You can read that slide later. There's some links, and then I'll stop and say, are there questions? And I'll leave my slides up so I can back up to the screens if somebody asks a question that I've got a slide for.
Do you have any recommendations for Wi-Fi throttles? And they can be in the form of commercially available or kits, designs. And since you're working engine driver, I'm wondering if there's anything that does engine driver type functionality in a more handheld throttle type device rather than a phone.
I'm not an expert on the hardware throttles. I've used the glass face all my life, all my railroading life, model railroading life anyway. So I'm very used to it. So I don't have a suggestion. There's nothing else that does what Engine Driver does, mostly because we have a guy named Peter Akers that lives in Australia that programs on it, and he apparently doesn't have a life. And so he adds these features to it constantly. So that's why Engine Driver's really far ahead of most anything else. The guys at I can't remember. They called it MC2 or MCII. They made a device with a big knob on top of it that ran Engine Driver. It ran an Android throttle, but I don't believe it's kept up. I don't believe they've maintained it to keep up with the Android, changes. So I don't have a suggestion for you. Sorry. Other than Engine Driver.
I guess one of the things that I have done with the CSB1 is to add a knob on the phone, or it's actually a pad, and it gives kids a real good chance to run engines on a small layout, because they can just adapt to running changes on a knob back and forth. So there was some difficulty that I had with applying the knob to more than one throttle. If you had like 3 throttles on a Engine Driver setup, how can you get the knob to go, or how can you add more than one knob? I guess be another question.
Yeah, you'd probably have to talk to Peter about that. He's the knob support expert. But it's really Engine Driver supports any device that will adjust the volume, including just pressing the up and down volume buttons on the phone itself. You'd be amazed how many people don't even realize that's available. To switch between throttles, you can tap on the screen. You can tap the actual where the speed indicator shows up and jump between them that way, and that will control which one the volume is controlling. But if you want to do it without touching the screen, you got to have some kind of additional button. Some of them, I know I've seen Peter talk about ones where you can press the button in, tap the button itself instead of turning it, and that'll switch it to the next throttle. But it kind of takes away some of the magic if you have to start teaching people all those kind of nuances. You start wondering, is it really, what am I saving here? So I'd love to have a device that was a notched slider, not a knob, because if you've ever driven a real locomotive, there's no knob up there running that thing. So I see some of these things that kind of look like, I'm not sure how many ladies we have on here, close your ears. It looks like a woman, and you can turn the knobs at the top. And I'm really concerned about, why people would buy something that looks like that and show it to a children. So I'm not sure what the attraction to the knobs are across the board, but no, I can't help you much. Peter could help you with that.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Steve, we have a question in the chat if you have any thoughts regarding LCC.
No, I sure don't. I'm not a LCC expert at all.
Steve, if anyone's looking for videos, any recommendation on YouTube for channels that might be covering this?
Yeah, I don't have the name right off the top of my head. There is a guy that does a lot of it. He's been part of the DCC-EX program for a while. But if I said the name out loud, everybody would go, "Oh, yeah, I've heard of that guy." But I can't remember what his name is, to be honest with you. Sorry. That was I've gotten 2 questions today I've never heard of before. So other questions? There are, if you just type in DCC-EX CSB1, there are a lot of videos out there that show that. There he is. He is DIY and Digital Railroad.
Yep.
Don't know that dude's name, but I've seen his face.
Yeah, Jimmy.
That's it. Jimmy has been part of the project for a while, and certainly would be considered a good source. I would start with his stuff.
Yeah, I can definitely echo that. I think he did a video on the Engine Driver as well, not too long ago.
I'm sure he has.
Quick question, Steve.
Sure.
On one of your slides, you had a cost for 45 plus 16 plus 15. And I was wondering what the extra 15 for the power supply?
Yes, the 15 is the power supply.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what that is. The 45 is the EX branded motor shield. The 16 is the commercial ESP32, and the 15 is a buy it on the internet AliExpress power supply, 50, basically. I don't know
Perfect.
what the voltage is.
Thank you.
Sure.
Perfect. Any recommendations for where you source the components?
I buy these ESP32s are right there, Key Studio. In
Okay.
fact, all of the parts that are listed there are available through those links. There's the power supply that I bought. The servo shield is from Key Studio. The ESP32 is by Key Studio. If you buy the CSP1 itself, you'd be better off getting it from the store, the DCC-EX.com. They have a store that you can buy stuff. I assume most of us are in America. Outside of America, they also have a list of vendors on the store page itself that you could go to. I can't recommend or disrecommend. I do know the guy Fred that runs the store here in America does a good job. Good to work with.
Are your links active in your slideshow when you?
Yeah, they're live. They're all live links. You could hover over them or click them if you download it, or if you just click that link, it takes you to Google Slides, and Google Slides, those are live.
Steve, what would you use to control Kato switches?
Are they on the track bus?
I mean, they're just a pulse. You can't really use servo boards for them.
But
Right.
don't they have an address? Don't they have a DCC address?
No, not the Kato switches that are on, unless you buy something from the guys in Florida that already have them pre-installed decoders.
Yeah, right. Just if it has a decoder, well then you don't need anything else. You just send the turnout command, and the command station takes care of it. If you're talking about actually what hardware to put in, I'm not a hardware guy.
Okay, I just thought you might have come across using a different shield than a servo for something.
No, not for my use. I haven't needed those, so I don't have.
Okay, thank you.
We don't have any power turnouts on our club layout, and my home layout is all powered by servos. So I just haven't had a need to learn that, really.
I would recommend that Katos are most easily made DCC compatible with the DigiTRAKs. I can't think of the name of it, but it's the one that it fits inside the bottom of the box. So the bottom of the container, or the format for the Kato switch. So it's small and it works.
Okay. Yeah, somebody's maybe answering your question in the chat there. So check the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. We're coming up on the hour. Really appreciate the presentation. That was really informative. Definitely gave me some things to look into after. Bruce has gone ahead and put the survey up. Please fill that out. It lets us make sure we're hitting the mark with our programming and clinics. And it lets us go out and encourage clinics that are of interest to our members. With that, too, as a reminder, again, the N-Scale weekend in Altoona. Registration is now open and available online. Also, don't forget, we have the NMRA show in Chattanooga. That's going to be July 27th to August 2nd. That'll be the National NMRA Convention as well as the National Train Show. And we also have the National T-Track layout, which will be on display in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Chattanooga is also a beautiful city. A lot of fun activities to do there. And there is the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum too. So a ton of activities. With that, we want to thank everyone for joining us on this hopefully sunny afternoon, depending on where you are in the rest of the country. And have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everyone. This is ZoomTRAK by NRail.